Hey everyone, welcome back to AFC, Action Figure Captures. In today's video we have a couple of elusive figures from the Amazon original series Invincible, based on the comic book series by Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead. And these figures have been very hard to find, and I was surprised to finally see them available locally here at an amazing comic shop by the name of Heroes World. And I want to thank John Ho for bringing them in and finally having the chance to get these two. I did a review a long while ago of the first two figures from the set, which were Omni-Man and Invincible himself, and this set happens to be of Adam Eve and Robot, which were the two that they had released for this particular wave. And I was really looking forward to getting these a lot sooner because they advertised them quite some time ago, but nothing ever came of it. And then suddenly I saw someone post randomly on Facebook that they had picked them up. And so I checked on Amazon and they're listed, but there's nothing available. And I decided I may as well check with our local shop here. Again, Heroes World, great shop in Markham, Ontario, Canada. And thankfully he had gotten them in. And John was nice enough to set a set of them, to set a pair of them aside for me. And grateful that he did. That said, these two figures are not the greatest, especially for photography. They're very limited in with regards to their posability. The stands that are inclusive are too loose or too weak to support the weight of the figure, so you can't use the stands at all. There are screws on them, so there may be a way of tightening them, but I know with the last set the stand broke. So they're not the best quality stand. Diamond Select seems a little hit or miss with quality on some of their figures. I mean, I remember their Avatar figures and they looked great, but they were very fragile, and these seem to be along the same lines. I've taken out the two figures just to kind of see how they look and feel. Adam Eve has her problems, paint apps being one of them, and Robot basically right out of the box had a loose right knee, so he basically has a joint that kind of wobbles when you try and pose him. But we're going to do our best to take some photographs of them and get some nice shots and some edits together and see how well they look in the photo edits. And I honestly think they might look okay. But we'll go forward here and do an honest review of what's in the boxes, what's inclusive, and the good and the bad about each one. Okay, so we'll start with Adam Eve. As you can see her here on the turntable, and she looks decent. The paint apps are clean and everything. Her eyes are kind of painted strangely, and there was, I believe, 3 copies at the store, and this was the best of the 3 with the positioning of the eyes. Her eyes looked a little weird because they're kind of, one of them looks like they're looking off to the side while the other one's looking forward. This was the only one that actually looked like it didn't really suffer from that problem that greatly, and so I picked this copy for myself. Included in the box you have multiple sets of hands and what look like blast effects, and they've got a couple of hands where she has a couple of blast effects on her hands. I've tried putting the ones that look like they have foot pegs into the figure. They don't go into the holes on her feet very well, so I can't really get them to stay on, and even when they're on they don't look right. I don't really know if I'm doing something wrong or if they're just not the greatest thing to use, but I'll try and get some photographs of those and see how they look when they're actually in the photograph, as opposed to just, you know, trying to peg them in loosely and looking at the figure with them on. She also comes with a mini figure, and forgive me, I've drawn a blank on the character's name, but she's one of the characters almost like Ant-Man, where she will shrink and grow in size in the series, and it's kind of neat that they included it, but the figure can't stand. It just falls over. It's not posable or anything at all. It's got no joints or any kind of articulation. It just stands there, but it can't even stand. It just falls over as soon as you try to stand it up. So I don't know why they didn't at least give a base stand for it or something to make it useful, but yeah, there's nothing included with it to do anything with the figure. Otherwise, that's it for accessories. She comes with, I believe it's 3 sets of extra interchangeable hands in different open palm poses and a gripping pose, even though there are no accessories for her to hold on to. And she does come with that extra set of hands that actually have the blast effect. So let's open up the box and I'll show you what's actually inside and show you the articulation of the figure as well. Okay, so here we have the figure with all of her accessories. As you can see, she's very limited with articulation. Single jointed elbows, single jointed knees, single jointed ankles. The ankles aren't on a ball rocker or anything, so you can't angle them downwards. They're just the one pose to put them downwards. You can't swivel them side to side. There's no waist cut. She's got upper thigh cut, so you can kind of angle the legs a bit. And she's got an upper arm cut as well at the shoulders, so you can actually angle the arms outwards. The hair blocks practically all the motion of the head, so she's constantly looking downwards. There's a means of moving the head a bit to try and get a bit of an upward angle, but not much. She's got an upper body cut just under her chest, so you can actually angle the body down a little bit into the sides left and right, but not much. So very limited for posing. The sculpting looks fine. She looks quite a bit like the actual cartoon character. The face leaves a bit to be desired, especially the eyes, as I mentioned. And then as you see, as she rotates, you can see all the accessories that are included. The blast effects that look like they go on the feet here don't really seem that practical. They don't seem to peg in very well, so they're very hard to get into her feet. And I don't know what the purpose of them is really. They don't really seem like they do anything. And then you have the blast effects with the fists that are actually built into the actual blast effect, and those I guess will give you the effects of her powers. She's got 3 additional sets of hands on top of that in different poses, so kind of an open pose, a somewhat gripping pose, and then a gripping pose. She doesn't come with any accessories to hold on to, so I'm not quite sure what the point of the kind of gripping hands are exactly, except for just I guess more dramatic posing. And then of course she has the included fists as well, and the fists, again, nothing around ball joints really outside of the shoulders, and I believe the head is as well, but again the head's not really that posable because of the hair. And the smaller figure I mentioned, again, forgive me, I don't remember the character name at the moment, but that's the little small figure. She looks great. It's very well painted. They actually put a lot of effort into painting it, but then they don't allow it to come with anything to help it stand, so as soon as you let go it falls over, so it's not all that useful, unfortunately. But they did an amazing job painting it. It actually looks almost better than the actual figure itself, so it's a bit disappointing that it doesn't do anything. It's not, there's no articulation, you can't move it at all. It just is a static pose, like a little mini statue. But the paint tabs on it look incredible. They did such a nice job on it. It's really too bad that you can't get it to stand or anything. So in taking photographs, I'll probably have to lean it against something and just take photographs of it just kind of leaning, and then edit out the background. But you can see they put a lot of effort into the paint tabs. They've actually got a lot of detail on this figure. The eyes are painted, the chest has the actual logo, got all the actual paint tabs for the suit. Like it looks really, really nice. It's just too bad they didn't do a little more with it, or at least give it a stand or something, so you could at least have it standing posing next to the figure. But it is what it is. Again, as I mentioned, the joints, single knee joints, upper leg cut, single ankle cut that only points downwards and upwards, it doesn't go side to side, single jointed elbows, so that's the whole range of motion. So that's basically the best pose you can really get her into. And she doesn't stand all that well either. So, and her head, that's as high as her head will come up. Now I'm shooting downwards on an angle, so her head actually looks up a little bit, but I mean, you have to almost rock her body backwards to get her to look up, and then you got to rebalance the whole figure again and make sure she doesn't fall over. But yeah, a little disappointing. The quality of plastic is decent, it's not the greatest, and it seems worse on Robot than it is on Adam Eve here. The wrist joints are very tiny, so you have to be careful swapping out the fists. So just be careful to kind of gently wiggle them and pull them out. Now they come out without any real issues, but they are a very small peg, as you can see. So you have to be very careful with them. Okay. Sorry for doing this off camera, but I figured it's the quickest way to do it. And then you can have the alternate hands on there, but that's basically the bulk of the accessories that come with her, are just the alternate hands, the blast effect hands, and the little mini figure. So to rank this 1 out of 10, I would probably say a 5. It looks good. It's nice to have them in the set because I do have Omni-Man and Invincible as well, and with Robot and everything, kind of building the team. But yeah, they leave a little bit to be desired. I wish they had done a little bit more with them to make them more posable and a little more kind of modern with regards to the posability and the sculpting and everything. It would have been nice to see a bit more done, like a waist cut would have been nice, things like that, double jointed knees, elbows, etc., just to be able to put them in more dramatic poses. But I'm pretty sure with the articulation supplied, you can get some half decent shots as well. So we'll see what we get once we move into the photography end of everything. Okay, so that's Adam Eve. Let's move on to Robot. Sorry, just to touch on the quality of the figure again. The issue I had with Adam Eve especially is raising her arms. They almost feel like they're on an elastic. They don't really go up or down very well, forgive me for the lack of focus here, but like the arms, you really have to force them up there. They don't really go up very easily, and it feels like you're going to tear them just by moving them. So this could just be my copy, I don't know, but you can see, like, I can't get the arm to go back down. It just snaps back in place. Like bends at the elbow and everything, just trying to get it to go down with one hand. So you have to take both hands, almost rotate the shoulder 360, going backwards, and then you can actually get it back in place. Sorry I did that off camera, but you have to almost like rotate her shoulder in the complete opposite direction in order to get the arm back in place facing forward, just because of the way, I guess, the shoulders are designed, or the way they've mounted the pegs to the shoulder. They don't turn freely. You have to kind of almost force them all the way around, and they feel like you're twisting the plastic, so just be careful of that, okay? Okay, so next we have Robot, and just to touch quickly, I didn't do so in the first clip with Adam Eve, but just to touch on the packaging, I do love the packaging artwork. It's very simple, it's very clean. You've got the animated artwork of the Amazon original Invincible series work. You've got your text just basically explaining what the figure is. I like the contrast of the yellow on the blue. It actually stands out nicely and everything. They've done a nice job with the design of the packaging. It's very simple, it's clean. I like the drawings and the artwork. You have the two figures that are actually in the wave, which is Robot and Adam Eve again, with a description of each character and what it's based on. And so I do appreciate that. Of course, they are by Diamond Select. I don't believe I mentioned that earlier, so I will mention that now. But yeah, like again, the packaging artwork, I like that they're actually following the same sequence and they're following the same look as the previous two figures. So I like that that's actually continuing and that it's consistent. And I like the simplicity of it all. It looks really nice. So yeah, from that said, let's move on to the figure. Okay, so here we are with Robot. I wanted to leave him in this blister quickly just so you can see the stand that's included. You get a nice base stand with an articulated stand with the figure. Sadly, those stands are very fragile. I know on one of the two figures I had the last time, it broke just trying to angle it. It snapped at one of the pegs, and so that stand became useless. This stand and the one included with Adam Eve aren't any better. They're very flimsy, very poorly made. They do have screws. These ones are both very loose, so you can't use them to actually pose the figure at all, sadly, because they're too loose, and I think if I screw them, it's just going to snap the thin plastic they chose to use to make them. So stands are a great idea, sadly not the best quality. Seems to be kind of a theme with this line of figures. I do like them, but the quality isn't really the greatest, unfortunately. Okay, so as he turns here, you can see that he does come with 4 sets of additional hands, and of course the figure himself. The figure looks great, the sculpting is accurate to the show and everything. Again, limited articulation, single jointed elbows, upper arm, swivel at the shoulders. They've got some swivel at the actual waist on the thigh, so there's a cut there. There's a single jointed knees, single jointed ankles, so they only point upwards and downwards. The head, again, even though it's actually kind of free there and it's on a ball joint, it's very limited in how much it can move. It can look out left and right fairly well. It doesn't look up and down all that well, so that's a bit of a drag. The body itself has no waist cut. It does have an upper body cut at the chest, so you can actually angle them out the upper body through the chest, but that's basically it. So you get very similar poses out of this one as you do the Adam Eve, as you do the Omni-Man and the Invincible, so they're consistent that way. But with Adam Eve and Robot, the articulation seems hindered because they have such thin, tiny joints for the elbows and also for the wrists and everything, and the ankles. They don't support the weight of the figure very well, the way it did with Omni-Man. He stood very well no matter what, and Invincible was still felt like he stood better than what these two do. Okay, let's open him up and take a look at the figure himself. Okay, so here we have Robot with all of his accessories. As you can see, all of his accessories are just a bunch of different hands in different open palm states and somewhat gripping hands, even though he doesn't have any accessories to grip onto. He does include 2 fisted hands, which is great, so you can just get a bunch of different poses with the open palm, so you get some dramatic poses out of him that way, I suppose, which is nice. The figure, again, suffers from that same limited articulation. There's no waist cut, so you have the upper body cut instead. You've got the upper shoulder cut on each arm, and you've got single jointed elbows, and you've got the wrists on a hinge that just goes up and down. It won't really go left or right or anything, so there's no real articulation there. Single jointed knees. There are thigh cuts, so you can actually angle the legs a little bit wider and everything as well. As I said, single jointed knees, single jointed ankles, so you can only angle the ankles up and down. You can't really balance them, so the figure doesn't stand very well based on the fact that the ankles can't be angled so that his weight's distributed properly. The head has very limited articulation. You'd think it would be able to look up and down based on his being just a helmet looking head, but he doesn't look up very well. He can look down and he can look left and right, and that's about it. So I'll get, some okay shots out of him with that posability, but he's a lot more limited than a lot of, current figures as well. I was told that I think apparently these are all based on older releases that came out years ago when the comic books first came out, and all they've done is update the paint apps. I don't know if that goes for all of them or just the original 2 figures, Omni-Man and Invincible, but like these guys have the same limited articulation and aren't terribly posable. They were probably great for that time. They're not so great for all of that now, unfortunately. And it's sad because, a lot of these are flying characters, so it'd be nice to get some nice dramatic flying poses and everything, and they're going to be very limited for that. As I mentioned, the stand that comes with them it's poor quality, so you really can't take advantage of actually using it to kind of having it in a flying pose. You just either got to use another stand, or try to use a screwdriver to tighten the screws on this one, risking snapping the plastic. If you can tighten it enough using a screwdriver, it'll probably be just fine. And again, this goes for the copies that I have. That's just the experience I've had with the 2 stands that came with the figures that I have. It may be different with other copies of the figure. So yeah, once again, the paint apps look great. The figure sculpting and everything is very nice. It's very cartoon accurate. I'm assuming they may have gone with a limited posability just to keep the design clean and make it look cartoon accurate. So that could be another reason for it as well. It may have just been design choices to make the character as clean as they possibly can. But yeah, like overall, again, I would say the most I can give this guy is maybe a 5 out of 10. One nice thing they did do, and I didn't mention that earlier, is that in one of the hands you do have his sort of laser blast effect. So he's got that little kind of gun built into his palm, so you can actually have him posing as if he's about to actually shoot at somebody. It's just a small little post sticking out there. It doesn't really look like a laser, but it's cool that they at least included that, so you can get a different pose out of him that way at least. But yeah, otherwise the other palms are kind of reaching palms and that sort of idea. They're very simple sculpts. I like that the fingers are all individual fingers and they're actually all kind of in different poses and everything, but again, it's just going to give me a few different poses with open palms for the most part. It's not really going to add a whole lot to the photos and so forth. It'll just kind of be a nice way of posing him with different options for hands, is all. But again, the articulation is going to be very limited, so it's going to be very hard to get him into interesting poses. Kind of have him just standing stationary for the most part like that, and he will look great in those photos and in those kind of poses. It's just he's very limited, and you're not going to be able to get much out of him, so there will only be a few edits, I think, in these videos of these 2 figures. But if you're a fan of Invincible, I'm a fan of the show. I really like what they've done with it, and I did enjoy the books and everything, so I did look forward to getting these figures, and they were almost impossible to find at one point. Like they basically turned up for pre-order and then just disappeared, and you couldn't find them anywhere. And I went to the Diamond Select site the other day to look for them after I heard they had come out, and they're not even on their site. They've got the other figures, including the pre-orders for the 2 next waves, which are Monster Girl and Duplicate and Alan the Alien. So Alan the Alien duplicated the next 2 figures, and then they'll have Monster Girl coming out as a separate release as well. With Monster Girl, it's cool that they actually included the kids figure, but she's only got a waist cut, and she's got upper arm articulation, like just at the shoulders to put the arms up and down, or forward or backwards. And I think that's it. I think the head may have a ball joint as well to move the head, but like that's again very limited articulation. The actual Monster Girl monster figure looks like it has articulation similar to these figures, so at least that'll be more posable. But yeah, like it's cool that they're doing these figures, but just the limited articulation really hurts them for toy photography. They're nice to just kind of throw on a shelf somewhere and just have them displayed, because they do look nice. They're very cartoon accurate, which I appreciate. But yeah, they're not the greatest figures for like posing and for taking kind of dramatic photos for edits and so forth. They're kind of very simple and very plain that way. The plastics used are a little questionable. They're very soft plastics and so forth, and like the legs on this figure, when you lift them up, they almost snap back the way the shoulders on Adam Eve did. Not as bad, so it's just, I don't know what's happening there with the way the plastic is kind of holding to itself, but the legs do kind of stick and they swing back a little bit when you try to pose them. So I'm a little paranoid about posing them too much and that they might break or something. I don't know, hopefully they won't. But once again, if you're just a fan of the show and you just want them to display, they look great for displaying. They're very nicely done that way. They're almost like little mini statues that'd be great to have on your shelf with the other characters, and it's just great to see they're actually releasing the whole team so far, and hopefully they'll continue to release them. And like I said, me being a glutton for punishment, I'll continue to buy them just to have them all so that I can display them all as a team at one point. That's going to do it for the video with regards to the actual video footage. I will take some photos at this point and splice them into the video just to give you an idea as to how they look in photos. Thanks for coming back, guys. If you are looking for these guys, I know that Amazon has them back up on their site, but I don't know if there's links to buy them. I didn't see any. But check your local comic shops. Again, I was lucky enough that Heroes World here in Ontario, Canada had them, and I was lucky enough to be able to pick them up. Again, not thrilled with them, but just grateful to have them, just to have them in my collection. But that's it, guys. Have a great day. Thank you for coming back to the channel. If you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe to the channel, and maybe let people know that the channel's out there. It's greatly appreciated, and it does help the channel a lot. And thank you again, guys. Have a great day. Take care.